All right, so you're looking to get the rundown on
Yeah.
the 2025 Yamaha MT-10,
Right.
and luckily we've got the inside scoop from Biker Motor Rider.
Okay.
Their latest article, published just a few days ago,
Mm-hmm.
on December 20th, calls this thing an absolute beast.
Wow.
And yeah, glancing at the specs, I can see why.
Yeah.
But is it all just raw power?
Right.
Let's find out.
Yeah, let's dig in.
Great.
So what's fascinating here is that Yamaha seems to be aiming for
Oh,
more than just brute force. They're talking about blending that power
yeah.
with cutting-edge technology.
Interesting.
So it's as comfortable carving up a twisty back road as it is on the track.
Wow.
That's a pretty ambitious goal.
Well, they're certainly not holding back on the engine.
Yeah.
We're talking 164 horsepower
Yeah.
and 112 newton-meters of torque. That's coming from a 998cc inline four, by the way,
Wow.
with a claim top speed of 250 kilometers per hour.
So what does that actually mean for you when you're in the saddle?
Right.
164 horsepower means this thing is going to launch off the line like a rocket.
Whoa.
You'll feel that instant acceleration, and with that torque figure,
Okay.
it'll pull hard in any gear.
Hold on. It gets even better.
Ah.
This engine isn't just any engine. It's directly descended from the Yamaha YZF R1 Superbike.
Wow. Okay.
Talk about a serious pedigree.
Yeah.
But they've also added some really nice rider aids,
Hmm.
a quick shifter cruise control, and even a new TFT display.
That R1 heritage is really important here.
Okay.
It tells us this engine is going to love to rev high.
Okay.
It's going to have a real screaming character to it.
I like it.
But these electronics are interesting.
Yeah.
It's like Yamaha wants to make this beast a bit more accessible.
Interesting.
Think about it. Traction control, multiple riding modes,
Yeah.
even cruise control for those longer rides.
Right.
All those features can make a big difference.
Yeah.
Especially if you're new to a bike this powerful.
Now, the article does a comparison with a few other bikes,
Right.
and there's some big names in there.
Okay.
The KTM 1290 Super Duke R Suzuki GSX S1000
Yeah.
and the Triumph Speed Triple 1200 RS.
Mhm.
Each one kind of represents a different corner of the market.
Right. And looking at that comparison, you start to see how Yamaha is positioning the MT-10.
Okay.
That Super Duke, for example, is the horsepower king in this segment. No
Oh,
question.
yeah. Right.
But the Suzuki GSX S1000, that's the value proposition.
And then you've got the Triumph,
Yeah.
which seems to be going for a more refined, almost sophisticated feel.
Right.
So where does that leave the MT-10?
Well, it seems like Yamaha is aiming for that sweet spot, a blend of R1-derived performance
Okay.
with everyday usability. It's the bike that can thrill you on a Sunday morning blast,
Uh-huh.
but won't totally kill your back on the commute to work.
Speaking of comfort, the article does mention that the MT-10 has a fairly aggressive design,
Hmm.
but they also say Yamaha tried to keep the riding position relatively comfortable.
Okay.
They even describe the front end as having a distinct angular face.
Yeah, and that angular design language, those sharp lines, it's all very intentional. Yamaha is signaling that this bike is meant to be ridden hard,
Interesting.
to be pushed to its limits.
Okay.
But let's be realistic.
Yeah.
A comfortable riding position is important for most riders, even on a bike like this.
And that raises a question about the seat height.
Okay.
It's listed at 835 millimeters,
Mhm.
which is pretty standard for this type of bike.
Right.
But how does that actually translate to real-world comfort for different riders?
That's a great question.
Yeah,
If you're a taller rider,
right.
that 835 millimeter seat height probably won't be an issue. You'll feel right at home.
Okay.
But if you're on the shorter side, you might find yourself on your tippy toes at stoplights.
Uh-huh. I can imagine.
That's something to consider.
Okay, so we've talked about the engine, the tech, the
Yeah.
design.
Yeah.
What about the riding experience itself?
Right.
What are the ups and downs of living with this beast?
Well, the article does a good job of laying out the pros and cons.
Okay.
That raw power, definitely a huge plus.
Yeah.
But it also comes with a caveat. This might not be the best bike for beginners.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, 164 horsepower is nothing to sneeze at.
Right.
But what about that exceptional handling they keep mentioning?
Yeah.
Is that something everyone can appreciate, or is it more for experienced riders?
That exceptional handling is going to give you a lot of confidence in the corners.
Okay.
You'll be able to really lean into turns and feel that connection with the road.
Yeah.
But there's a trade-off.
Okay.
The firm suspension that gives you that sharp handling can also mean a rougher ride on bumpy roads.
Right, so you might feel every bump and imperfection in the road.
You got it.
Is that something you can get used to, or is it a deal breaker for some riders?
It really depends on your priorities and what you're looking for in a bike.
Okay.
Some riders actually prefer that firm suspension feel. They like the feedback it gives them.
Interesting.
But if you're someone who values comfort above all else,
Right.
this might not be the bike for you.
And let's not forget about wind protection or lack thereof.
Right.
This is a naked bike after all.
It is.
Is that something you can fix with aftermarket parts?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it something you just have to accept if you want this kind of bike?
You're right. Wind protection is something to consider, especially if you plan on doing any longer rides.
Okay.
You're definitely going to feel the wind blast at higher speeds.
Right.
The good news is there are usually aftermarket options for adding windshields or fairings if you need them.
All right. Before we get too far ahead of ourselves,
Okay.
let's take a step back and look at where the MT-10 fits into the Yamaha lineup.
Mm-hmm.
It's originally introduced back in 2016
Yeah.
as part of their MT series, which is known for these raw, aggressive, street fighter style bikes.
Right. And that MT series has always been about pushing the boundaries of performance and style.
Right.
They're not afraid to be bold and a little bit edgy.
So this 2025 model isn't just some random update.
Right.
It's carrying on that legacy. It's the culmination of years of development and refinement.
Exactly.
But how does it stack up against the competition in today's market?
Yeah.
That's what we'll dig into next.
Great. I'm excited.
Me too.
Let's do it. It's interesting to see how the MT-10 has evolved
Yeah.
alongside the motorcycle market. When it first came out, it was all about that raw power and in-your-face styling.
Right.
Now they've clearly put a lot of thought into the technology, the rider aids,
Yeah.
even trying to dial in a bit of comfort.
So it seems like Yamaha is trying to broaden the appeal, maybe attract riders who might not have considered the MT-10 before.
Right.
But who exactly are they targeting with this bike?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
It seems like they're going after the rider who wants it all.
Okay.
The heart-stopping performance of a superbike,
Mm-hmm.
but in a more upright, comfortable package.
Interesting.
Someone who wants to feel that raw, visceral connection with the machine,
Yeah.
but also appreciates having all the latest tech at their fingertips.
Okay. But let's be real for a second.
Okay.
The article says the MT-10 isn't really meant for long-distance touring. But could you actually tour on this thing if you were so inclined?
You could technically tour on just about any bike, right?
Yeah, I guess.
But it comes down to how much you're willing to sacrifice.
Okay.
That sporty riding position and the lack of wind protection.
Right.
Those could make for some pretty long, uncomfortable days in the saddle.
Yeah. I imagine after a few hours, you'd start to feel it in your wrists and back.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But hey, maybe that's part of the appeal for some riders.
Yeah.
It's all about that raw, unfiltered experience.
There's definitely a certain breed of rider who thrives on that kind of intensity.
Yeah.
They see discomfort as a badge of honor, a testament to their commitment to the ride.
Okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the price.
Okay.
Starting at $13,999 a thing,
Mm-hmm.
the MT-10 isn't exactly a budget-friendly option.
Yeah, that's true.
Is it worth a premium over some of those other bikes we talked about?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
The MT-10 does offer a pretty compelling package.
Right.
You've got that R1-derived engine, all the latest tech,
Yeah.
and a design that's sure to turn heads.
Right.
But ultimately,
Yeah.
it boils down to your priorities as a rider.
Right. If you're someone who prioritizes raw power and performance above everything else,
Mm-hmm.
you might be tempted by that KTM Super Duke R, even if it comes with an even higher price tag.
Yeah, and let's not forget about the Suzuki GSX S1000.
Right.
It's coming in at a lower price point,
Right.
which is definitely appealing.
Yeah.
But you might be sacrificing some of the refinement and that unique engine character
Yeah.
that the MT-10 offers.
So it seems like Yamaha is trying to strike a balance here, offering a premium experience without completely breaking the bank.
Yeah.
They're aiming for that sweet spot where performance, features, and price all line up.
Exactly. They're trying to appeal to the discerning rider who wants the best of both worlds, performance and value.
Okay, we've talked a lot about the technical stuff,
Yeah.
but let's shift gears for a moment and talk about design. We touched on it briefly before, but I'm curious to get your expert take on the MT-10's aesthetics.
From a design standpoint,
Okay.
the MT-10 is definitely making a statement.
Yeah.
It's aggressive, angular, and almost menacing in its appearance.
Yeah.
Yamaha has clearly gone for a look that screams performance and attitude.
The article described the front end as having a distinct angular face.
Hmm.
What do you think they were going for with that?
Those Those twin LED headlights, the sculpted fuel tank, the
Yeah.
exposed engine,
Hmm.
it all adds up to a very distinctive and eye-catching design. It's
Right.
like a predator stalking its prey.
Whoa.
Yamaha wants you to know that this bike is not to be trifled with.
But what about the ergonomics? How does the MT-10 actually feel from the rider's perspective?
The riding position is definitely on the sporty side,
Okay.
with a slight forward lean and relatively high foot pegs.
Mm.
It's not as extreme as a full-on sport bike,
Right.
but it's not as relaxed as a cruiser either.
What's kind of compromise?
Yeah.
Sporty enough to have fun in the twisties,
Mm.
but not so aggressive that it's uncomfortable for everyday riding.
Exactly. Yamaha has tried to create a riding position that allows for both spirited riding and everyday usability.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
The specs, the features, the design.
Mm-hmm.
But before we wrap things up, I think it's important to touch on the MT-10's legacy.
Okay.
It's been around for a while now,
Yeah,
and it's gone through a lot of changes over the years.
absolutely. The MT-10 has a rich history
Yeah.
dating back to its introduction in 2016.
Right.
It's been a popular model for Yamaha,
Hmm.
and this 2025 iteration builds upon that legacy with a host of updates and improvements.
It's interesting to see how it's evolved over time, reflecting both advancements in technology and changing rider preferences.
When the MT-10 first debuted, it was all about raw power and aggressive styling.
Right.
Now we're seeing a more sophisticated machine
Yeah.
with advanced electronics, refined ergonomics, and a touch of practicality.
Interesting.
It's like they've taken everything they've learned over the past few years
Right.
and poured it into this new model.
So with all that in mind,
Yeah.
what are your final thoughts on the 2025 Yamaha MT-10? Is it living up to the hype?
I think Yamaha has done a really impressive job with this update.
Okay.
They've taken an already capable machine and made it even better.
Right.
It's got the performance, the technology, the looks.
Yeah.
It's a bike that's sure to appeal to a wide range of riders.
But is it the right bike for everyone?
That's a question only you, the listener, can answer.
Okay.
But hopefully this deep dive has given you a better understanding of what the MT-10 is all about.
Right.
Its strengths, its weaknesses,
Yeah.
and where it fits into the motorcycle landscape.
Now we've thrown a lot of information your way.
Right.
What were your biggest takeaways?
What aspects of the MT-10 stand out to you?
Yeah.
What are your biggest questions or concerns?
Think about your own riding style, your needs, and your budget.
Right.
Would the MT-10 be a good fit for you? We've covered a lot of ground here,
Yeah.
from the engine specs to the design philosophy, and even a bit of the MT-10's history.
Yeah. It's been a pretty comprehensive look.
But what does it all really mean for you?
That's the key question, isn't it?
Yeah.
This deep dive was all about giving you the tools to decide for yourself.
Right.
Remember, the motorcycle world is vast,
Mm-hmm.
and what's perfect for one rider
Right.
might be totally wrong for another.
So let's bring it back to the 2025 Yamaha MT-10.
Okay.
Is it living up to that beast label the article gave it?
It certainly seems to be packing the power and the tech to back that up.
Yeah.
That R1 derived engine is a serious statement.
Right.
And they haven't skimped on the electronics either.
Yeah, they didn't.
But more than that, it's the combination that's intriguing.
You're right. It's not just a straight line monster.
No.
They've clearly put thought into making it handle well, and even given a nod to comfort. But let's be honest, it's still a naked superbike.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a certain attitude, a rawness that some riders will crave and others might find intimidating.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
There's no
Right.
There's no one-size-fits-all answer here.
Right.
It all comes back to what you, the listener, are looking for in a bike.
Right?
What kind of riding do you do?
Yeah. What are your priorities?
Exactly. If you're all about chasing lap times and pushing the limits,
Right.
maybe the MT-10's blend of performance and tech is exactly what you need.
Hmm.
But if you're more about long, relaxed rides and prioritizing comfort,
Yeah.
there might be other bikes out there that are a better fit.
The important thing is to go into this with your eyes open.
Right.
Do your research, read reviews, talk to other riders, and most importantly,
Yes.
test ride any bike you're seriously considering.
Couldn't agree more.
And hey, even if the 2025 MT-10 isn't your cup of tea, this whole deep dive has hopefully given you a better understanding of what's out there in the world of motorcycles.
There's a whole universe of amazing machines
Right.
just waiting to be discovered.
So keep exploring, keep riding, and most importantly, stay safe out there.
Absolutely. Ride safe, everyone.